Picture the Arctic in winter. The wind is strong enough to knock a grown adult off their feet. The temperature is 40 degrees below zero, and there's a blizzard howling that just will not stop. In a place like this, almost every animal is either curled up hibernating or scrambling to find somewhere warm. And yet, out on this blank, white, eerily quiet stretch of snow, there's a small, furry little creature who has pulled a huge, ridiculously fluffy tail over its nose, curled itself into a ball, and is fast asleep. Not shivering, not hibernating, just sleeping, as if that 40 below blizzard outside had absolutely nothing to do with it. I'm Dr. Gray Parrot, and welcome to the Animal Truth Lab. Today's little creature, the one napping through the storm without a care in the world, is the Arctic fox. Its scientific name is Vulpes lagopus, and that name is where the fun starts. Vulpes is just Latin for fox, but lagopus is two ancient Greek words stitched together, lagos meaning hair and pous meaning foot. Put them together and the name literally means hare foot. A fox named after a rabbit's foot? Here's why. Whoever named it centuries ago noticed that even the soles of its feet are packed with thick fur, exactly like the furry paws of a snowshoe hare. Hold on to that word, hare foot, because the very first secret to how this animal sleeps so soundly at 40 below is hiding right there in its name. I'll be honest with you, the first time I studied this fox, I didn't buy it, so I ran a little thought experiment. Imagine I've got a giant thermostat that controls the temperature of the entire Arctic. I dial it down to 20 below. Nothing. The fox keeps sleeping. I turn it further, 30 below, 40 below, and it doesn't so much as twitch an ear. That same 40 below would flatten you or me. So why is this little fox so completely unbothered? The answer is in its coat.
Scientists once ran a classic study where they took the pelts of many different animals, measured them one by one, and asked, whose fur keeps in the most heat? The winner was the Arctic fox. And notice, not the best in the Arctic, the best insulating fur of any mammal ever measured. No runner-up. What makes this coat so special? Come winter, its fur grows twice as long as in summer, and nearly 70% of it is fine, dense underfur. Think of it this way. In winter, this fox isn't wearing an ordinary jacket. It's zipped into a down sleeping bag that traps air and locks it in. And that sleeping bag runs all the way down to the soles of its feet. Right, remember the hare foot in its name? That's where it comes from. The undersides of its paws are covered in thick fur, like a pair of built-in snow boots. Those fur boots do two jobs. They stop it slipping on snow, and they keep it from bleeding away heat even when it's standing directly on ice. And speaking of feet, here's an even cleverer design. When you and I stand out in the cold too long, our feet ache and go numb. But the Arctic fox can stand right on the ice, and its paws stay at just the right temperature, the temperature where they don't quite freeze. How? Its legs hold a beautifully simple bit of plumbing. The warm blood flowing down toward the paw runs right alongside the cold blood coming back up from the paw. They pass close together, and the warm blood hands its heat over to the cold blood on its way back in. So the heat gets recycled back into the body before it can leak out through the paw and be lost. Its paw tissue only truly freezes at about 1 degree below zero, and its feet sit forever just above that line. Cold enough not to waste heat, warm enough never to freeze. Scientists have a name for this trick: countercurrent heat exchange. And here's a nice footnote. About 70 years ago, the very study of how this Arctic fox keeps warm became the founding classic of the whole science of surviving the cold.
On top of all that, the Arctic fox is built round and stout. Small ears, a short muzzle, short legs. Why that shape? Because the more compact and ball-like a body is, the less surface it has to lose heat through. Do the math, and only a little over 20% of the Arctic fox's skin sheds heat quickly. Its cousin, the red fox, who lives somewhere much warmer, sits at 33%. So, now you understand why my thermostat hit 40 below and the fox was still asleep.
There's a classic measurement that says this fox has to get all the way down to around 40 below before its body even needs to start burning extra energy to warm itself. 40 below. More than twice as cold as your kitchen freezer before it so much as thinks about switching the eating on. Oh wait, I have to be honest with you here. That number I just gave you, 40 below, scientists are still arguing about it. Here's why. More recently, some researchers went up to a place in the Arctic called Svalbard and measured living, breathing Arctic foxes, and the number they got wasn't nearly so extreme, more like 7 below, and the fox starts adjusting. 40 below versus 7 below is a big gap, right? But here's the interesting twist. Come winter, the Arctic fox deliberately turns its own inner furnace down and runs in a low power mode, burning energy about a third slower than in summer. So that 7 below figure was measured on a fox that had already flipped into energy-saving mode. It isn't all down to the fur. Still, whichever number you pick, one thing is certain. Scientists have chilled the air to 45 below and measured this fox's core temperature, and it barely budges. Rock steady. So tell me, how cold does my thermostat have to go before this fox decides, bit chilly? I keep cheating, cranking it colder than anywhere it would ever actually meet in its life, and it just tucks its tail back over its nose and keeps sleeping. Round 1 of the Great Thermostat Challenge, I lose. Alright, enough about the fur. This next part is the thing most people get completely wrong.
In winter, the Arctic fox turns as white as snow. In summer, it switches back to a grayish brown. So let me ask you, why do you think it turns white? I'd bet 9 out of 10 people say because it's so cold. The cold froze it white. Sounds perfectly reasonable, doesn't it? Cold snap, snowfall, and the fox goes white, as if the cold itself had bleached it. But that's not the truth. Let me hand you a crack in the story. In Iceland, and along some Nordic coasts, there lives another kind of Arctic fox that people call the blue fox. The blue fox lives somewhere just as cold, the same ice, the same snow, the same blizzards, and yet the blue fox never turns white. When winter comes, it might lighten just a shade, but it stays that deep, dark grayish brown all year round. So here's the puzzle. If cold really freezes a fox white, then why doesn't the blue fox, living somewhere just as cold, turn white too? You see it now, don't you? What actually turns the Arctic fox white isn't the temperature. It's a set of genes written into its body. The white fox's genes give it a built-in instinct to change its clothes with the seasons. The blue fox's genes simply lack that wardrobe switching feature, so it wears the same dark coat the whole year. And it gets better. Scientists found that the very same tiny change to a single gene does 2 things at once. One hand paints the fur dark, and the other hand quietly switches off the change with the seasons ability. Even stranger, that blue gene is actually the more dominant one genetically speaking, so by rights, blue foxes should be everywhere. And yet, across the whole world, it's the white fox, the one that turns white, that makes up 90% of them. Nature doesn't always play by the rules. Put another way, the Arctic fox changing into its white coat is less like a thermometer and more like it's got a calendar inside its body. When the season rolls around and it's time to switch to winter clothes, it switches, and exactly how many degrees below zero that particular day is doesn't really matter.
And that wardrobe change is itself a brilliant piece of camouflage. In summer, the tundra is gray-brown rock and moss, so the fox wears gray-brown and melts into the stones. In winter, the whole land turns to white snow, so it slips into pure white and vanishes. As for the blue fox, it lives among dark coastal cliffs and rocks, so that dark coat is its best camouflage instead. And because it lives by the sea, its favorite food isn't the lemmings out on the snow, but the seabirds and eggs packed onto the cliffs. Camouflage, though, is just the basics. What really makes me think this fox is a piece of work is the way it catches its food. In winter, thick snow blankets the land. Under the snow, a little animal called a lemming is digging tunnels and scurrying around. From up top, there's nothing to see, just a silent stretch of white. But the Arctic fox stands on the snow, ears pricked high, listening hard, and it can hear the lemmings running beneath the snow. Then comes the spectacular part. It fixes the spot, springs off its back legs, launches its whole body high into the air, curves into an arc mid-jump, head down, front paws down, and bam, plunges straight down head first through the snow, punching through the layer to snatch the lemming underneath. From hearing the sound to hitting the snow, it's a matter of a few tenths of a second. Not with its eyes, with its ears. And don't think it only goes after tiny things. Every April and May, mother seals dig snow dens under the deep drifts and hide their newborn helpless pups inside. The Arctic fox uses the very same skill. It sniffs and listens out the exact spot of that hidden snow den, digs it open, and pulls out a seal pup that can barely stand. A fox that weighs just over 3 kilos hunting a baby seal. Tell me that isn't a piece of work.
And it doesn't stop there. The Arctic fox is also a champion food hoarder. In summer, plenty of birds are laying eggs along the coast, and the fox gets busy moving eggs. In Canada, scientists have clocked it collecting snow goose eggs at about 3 to 7 an hour. The key thing is, it doesn't eat them on the spot. It buries 80 to 90% of them, one by one, in the frozen ground. What is it doing? It's stocking a fridge. The Arctic is already cold, so an egg buried in that frozen soil is basically sitting in a natural walk-in freezer. How good is it? Those buried eggs are still edible a year later. 2 months in, they've lost only about 1/10 of their nutrition. So when winter comes and there's nothing to eat out there, the fox goes back to its stashes and digs its supplies out one by one. A single fox turning the whole Arctic into its own pantry. Honestly, the Arctic fox is a survival specialist who turns nothing down. Lemmings, voles, birds, eggs, fish, seal pups, whatever the polar bears leave behind, it eats the lot. And when there's truly nothing else, it'll stuff down seaweed from the shore and summer berries too. Every autumn before winter sets in, it eats and eats until it's round as a ball, laying down a thick layer of fat under its skin as a reserve. So while most Arctic animals are either hibernating or hiding away, the Arctic fox is one of the few that stays awake, walking through the whole brutal winter on its fur, its belly of fat, and its buried stockpiles. Speaking of getting by, the thing about the Arctic fox that stuns me most is how it has babies. Among all the meat-eating mammals, lions, tigers, wolves, bears, all of them, who do you think holds the record for the most young in a single litter? This little Arctic fox. In a bumper lemming year, one Arctic fox mother can give birth to 12 or more pups in one go. The record is 25.
Why can it have so many? Because it's gambling. The Arctic fox's main food is lemmings, and lemming numbers boom every few years and then suddenly crash. The clever fox picks the year lemmings explode in number and breeds like mad, raising as many pups as it can while food is falling from the sky. Then, when lemmings crash, the foxes sometimes just don't breed that year at all. To breed or not to breed, it all rides on how the lemmings are doing. But why gamble so big? Why have so many at once? Because life in the Arctic is genuinely brutal. From the sky, snowy owls and golden eagles are watching. On the ground, wolves and wolverines, and food can vanish overnight. Most Arctic fox pups won't even make it through their first winter. So the clever mother throws everything into that one lemming-rich year, because even if only a few survive, at least she keeps a few more of her children. When those pups are born, they're heartbreakingly tiny, just 60 to 90 grams, barely bigger than a chicken egg, blind and deaf, and it's about 2 weeks before their eyes slowly open. And guess what? The coat they're born in is dark. It takes until around 8 weeks old before that change with the seasons ability slowly comes online. Luckily, Mum isn't raising this big family alone. Arctic foxes are mostly monogamous. Many of them pair up with one partner for life, and both parents raise the young together. Sometimes a sister from last year's litter stays on as a devoted babysitter, helping with this year's brood. And the whole family lives in an inherited mansion, a den dug underground, a system of tunnels linked one to another. The small ones are a few dozen square meters. The big ones sprawl over 1,000 square meters with several entrances. And a den like this gets passed down, generation to generation, used by the same fox family for decades, even centuries. They're picky about location, too. The entrance usually faces south because a south-facing den catches more sun and stays that bit warmer inside. Most Arctic foxes are real homebodies. In winter, about 95% of them just potter around near home looking for food, and a trip out rarely lasts more than 3 days before they're back. But there's always one that can't sit still. Scientists put a satellite tracker on a female fox just 1 year old. She set out from an Arctic island called Svalbard, stepped onto the drifting sea ice, and started walking. 21 days and over 1,500 kilometers of sea ice later, she reached Greenland. And she didn't stop. She kept going, 76 days in all the way to an island in Canada. The whole journey added up to more than 4,400 kilometers. At her fastest, she covered over 150 kilometers in a single day. An animal weighing only a bit over 3 kilos, about the weight of a skinny house cat, crossed an ice field as vast as an ocean, on foot, on 4 little legs. Every time I think about it, I can hardly believe it. And speaking of walking across ice, did you know that the one and only land mammal native to the whole island of Iceland is the Arctic fox? Scientists believe its ancestors walked over the frozen sea at the end of the last ice age and settled down on that lonely island. The Arctic fox has one more trick for finding food, and I privately call it following the big boss for leftovers. Out on the Arctic sea ice lives a giant hundreds of times bigger than the fox, the polar bear. And if you caught our earlier episode about the polar bear, you'll realize the Arctic fox and the polar bear are basically neighbors living in the same giant freezer. When a polar bear catches a seal, it often can't finish it and leaves scraps behind. And the Arctic fox's nose is razor sharp. From a long way off, it can smell the feast the bear left. So it follows the polar bear at a safe distance, waits for the big boss to eat his fill and move on, then comes up to clean up the leftovers. And that's how it gets through the leanest part of winter. A little snow-white fox treating the biggest predator on land like a rolling snack cart. Isn't that just brilliant?
You might be wondering, where on earth did the Arctic fox learn all this cold-fighting skill? Up on the high, cold Tibetan plateau, scientists dug up a fossil fox from around 5 million years ago, and its teeth looked remarkably like today's Arctic fox. That gave them a bold idea. Maybe, long before the Arctic ever froze over, the Arctic fox's ancestors first trained up their cold hardiness in the deep freeze of the Tibetan plateau. And then, when the great ice ages arrived and the Arctic froze, they moved in already fully equipped and took to it like fish to water. Scientists call this idea out of Tibet. So by now, you probably think the Arctic fox is an unbeatable king of the cold, right? A coat that's the warmest in the world, hunting by sound, running its own fridge, changing its camouflage with the seasons. A winner any way you slice it. But I have to tell you a turn that's a little heartbreaking. These past few years, the Earth has been slowly warming. Less snow falls on the Arctic than it used to, and the snowy season is getting shorter. And here's the problem. The Arctic fox's white winter coat is meant to hide it in the snow. But when there's less snow on the ground and the dark soil and rocks show through, that white coat suddenly stands out horribly. What was a cloak of invisibility has become the most obvious marker there is. That's not all. As it warms, the fox's bigger cousin, the red fox, pushes north with the warming climate right into Arctic fox territory. The red fox and the Arctic fox actually split from the same ancestor around 3 million years ago. It's just that this warm southern cousin grew up bigger and stronger. When the red fox moves in, it steals the Arctic fox's den, steals its food, and doesn't even spare the young pups. Once, there were wolves up north to keep the red foxes in check so they didn't dare get too bold. But once humans hunted the wolves down to almost nothing, the red fox had no rival left. Its numbers grew and grew, and the Arctic fox got squeezed out with less and less ground to stand on.
Now, let me be clear about one thing. If you add up every Arctic fox on the whole planet, there are still several 100,000 of them. The overall numbers are fairly stable, and for now, there's no immediate danger. But in some places, it's a completely different story. Northern Europe, Norway, Sweden, Finland is where it's most worrying. Across that whole region, the Arctic fox once dropped to only about 100-odd breeding adults. 100-odd foxes to carry an entire region. Thankfully, people have noticed. Right now, a group of scientists and conservationists are working hard to help them, putting out food for them in winter, working to control the red foxes moving in, and releasing hand-raised young Arctic foxes back into the wild, one by one. An animal that owns the warmest coat in the world now, of all things, needs us to reach out a hand. Remember that thermostat from the start, the one I couldn't get cold enough? No matter how far down I turned it, I couldn't break this little fox. But now I realize the thing that's actually pushing it to the edge isn't me turning the temperature down, it's the whole Earth being turned up. That world-beating coat can shrug off a 40 below blizzard, but it can't shrug off a world that's slowly warming with less and less snow. That is the one problem this magnificent coat simply cannot solve. Out on that white, silent Arctic, evolution came up with two completely different answers to the very same cold. One is to grow yourself into a giant and brute force it with sheer size. That's the polar bear. The other is to shrink yourself into a tiny ball, pull on the warmest coat in the world, and quietly change into a disguise with the seasons. And that's the Arctic fox. One huge, one tiny. One by brawn, one by cleverness. Neighbors in the same great freezer, each having found its own way to live. And that, to me, is the most captivating thing about nature. For the very same problem, it never has just one answer. Next time you're out in the deep, deep cold of winter and you feel like you're about to freeze solid, spare a thought for that little white fox lying out in a 40 below blizzard with its big tail over its nose, sleeping without a care. And maybe you'll find you have that much more respect for it, and for that remarkable coat it wears. I'm Dr. Gray Parrot. I'll see you next time. Next time, the Animal Truth Lab meets the greatest builder on Earth. Hidden in its front teeth is real iron. Orange, rock hard, forever growing, a chisel that never goes blunt. With it, this tiny architect builds a wall a satellite can spot from space, reshaping a whole river. Yet it doesn't even live inside. And what drives it to work day and night? Just one sound: running water. So who is this master builder? Want the answer? Hit like, subscribe so you don't miss it, and share it with your best friend. I'm Dr. Gray Parrot. Thanks for coming to the Animal Truth Lab. See you next time. Bye-bye.